those hours am I actually producing? Right? Do I have a lot of holes in my schedule? Do I have a high concentration of patients that cancel on me at the last minute so that the production just evaporates, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I look at those things from a production standpoint. I usually find is that stuff is usually in pretty good shape, right? And then it comes down to, okay, now let's look at your how well you're collecting money for the service you provide. And then I see, okay, you're collecting 65 cents on the dollar. We need to look at that. And then immediately I'll go look at their claims, their outstanding claims, and their accounts receivable. And I'll find that those are disproportionately high. But I could find that, nugget in like the production part of it, or I can find it in the collection part of it. I rarely even look at the overhead part of it because there's so little room to move the needle there. So.
Okay. So.
Yes, one thing they do is keep a pretty good eye on how much money they spend. Right.
Right.
Almost to a fault. Coach was like, don't look at it like that. You got to figure out which one of those expenses are actually investments, because you don't want to chintzy on those, but control the overhead that we can. But you don't look for things like, I'm going to reduce people's pay or pay people less than the market will bear. I mean, if people have opportunities outside of your office, they're going to explore them, right? So don't give them a reason to.
Sure. So you when you break it down to those three ways to move the needle, and you start with production and then you start with collection, that's where we're starting to get into these production profitability factors, right? Because we have production volume as a factor, which breaks down into gross versus net production. Then there's collection efficiency, which you just mentioned.
Right.
Am I on the right track here?
No, that's exactly it. I mean, there's when someone says, "Yeah, I'd like to make more money," like, great. There's three ways we can do it.
Yep.
Improve production, improve collection efficiency, reduce overhead. The third one has you have the least opportunity with, so I focus on the first two.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one, production volume, right? Am I getting the one, if you were saying, what was the first thing you would look at? And it is this. I would look at the production per hour number, right? It is a tell-all, right? I'm busier than shit, right? I hear that all the time. Great. My chairs are always full. And then I go look, and the doctor's production per hour, $120. And I'm like, you should be over 300, right? Just to give you an idea. It should be in the 300 to 375 range, in my opinion, right? So I'm looking at like, yeah, you're busier, than a 100 paper hanger, but you're not maximizing your production per hour. Why is that? And then it becomes down to, well, I don't diagnose very much, and I'm diagnosing 3 surface fillings instead of crowns, or, I'm putting in a bridge instead of doing it. Whatever the case may be, you need to look at what you're diagnosing, and maybe you're not taking advantage of every opportunity you have from that regard. How well are you scheduling? Because maybe it is. Well, I'm not busy, right? I got 3 hours a week that no one's sitting in my chair and I'm not doing dentistry. I'm back in my office looking at Facebook or eBay, whatever, right? So is that the issue? That's how we move the production. Like more, each hour I'm doing more dentistry, or I'm filling in the holes that right now I'm producing 0.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to zoom in on that a little bit, like any organization that requires somebody to say yes in order for you to render your services, that's a challenge that they have consistently as well, right? I've looked in your mouth. I see that you need, a crown and a couple of fillings. Getting you to acknowledge that and agree to move forward with that treatment is an area of struggle. They call that case acceptance, right? So presented the case, has the patient accepted it or not? So the average practice probably has somewhere over $500,000 in
undiagnosed, unscheduled treatment on their books.
Right.
Wow. What does that break down to percentage-wise, you think? Like, what percentage of cases are accepted?
Depends on how good the doctor is at presenting, and communicating.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the typical doctor's office is in the 65% case acceptance range. If that.
I'd say that's probably pretty generous.
Okay.
I don't know if you took
the good ones.
If you took a true average, I mean, that's probably about right.
Yeah, 60 to, let's just call it half.
And what's the top 10% look like? 65% or more?
Depends on who you ask, but yes, I would say that. their consultants out there saying, I get my guys at 90% case acceptance, and I don't believe that for a minute. But
Yeah.
you're 70, you're probably hitting it out of the park.
Interesting.
Okay?
So these are reasons why your production might not be as efficient as possible. There's lack of case acceptance, you just don't have people in chairs, and then diagnosing, you're not diagnosing issues
So
well
you're really
enough.
conservative with your diagnosis, right? You're like, we can do the filling when you really need a crown, because they're afraid that the crown's going to run me off because it costs $1,500 versus a $300 filling.
Right.
So they're real conservative in that regard. Yeah. Even though it's probably, the crown is probably the best solution to their dental problem, they're afraid the price is going to become a barrier.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What you'll hear consistently in an office is, hey, I see, we could potentially do a large filling. It would last you, probably 5 to 7 years. Could be longer, could be less, depending on a lot of factors. Or I could go ahead and crown that, and that's really probably the longer term solution. It would be like patching your tire versus replacing your tire. Your filling's going to cost you $350. Your crown's going to cost you $800 or whatever the number is. If it were my mother sitting in the chair, I'd do the crown, right? So you hear a lot of those things where they kind of vomit over the patient, and here's some options,
right?
And then just kind of sit.
They're anticipating that that the cost is going to be a problem right out of the gate, instead of just saying, this is what we need to do. And be quiet about the filling part.
Yeah.
And if they object, of course, but
there's very philosophies on that. And I don't, the context of these blog posts and content, probably don't want to chase down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But just for your context, so as you're kind of picking some of these things apart, I do think that touching on case acceptance, and
recognizing it as a factor that moves the needle. That's production volume, huge needle mover, and within and these are the things that can affect your production volume. And the idea, right, is that if getting them past this idea, the only way to improve production volume is to have more new patients coming in.
Yeah.
Because that may or may not be true.
That makes a lot of sense.
I look at it, but I'm looking more at what's your production per hour. And to me, that is the first telltale sign of how well they're doing with what they have going on. Because what I find is that a lot of times, of course, you want to keep growing your practice from a patient standpoint, but at the end of the day, I can move your needle really fast just by maybe looking at these factors. Whether it's case acceptance or, if you've got holes in your chair, then maybe you do need new patients, right? They don't have enough draw to keep them full.
Mm-hmm.
But that was more of a bad policy in keeping, making sure people show up when they're supposed to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's how I pictured the structure too, that these are factors of why your production might not be very high, case acceptance being one of them. I wonder if you could talk me through the gross production versus net production one more time. I'm just it's not totally clicking with me. And for this first article, and also obviously we have a whole article on it, I think it's a pretty important piece. So
quite frankly, a lot of doctors don't understand it either, because most softwares aren't designed to manage it anyway. They either ignore the fact that you have a write-off, or they go down a different path and charge different fees. So to boil it down, it's simply this. So I'm a patient of Rob Hayes, DDS, and I have Delta Dental of Missouri, and Rob charges $100 to do an examination on me. And I roll in and go, well, I'm Delta Dental, and they're like, great. You post that $100 service to my ledger. Delta Dental Missouri says, cool, we cover 100% for that exam, but we cover 100% of what we think is right, what you should charge, called an allowed amount. So we're only going to pay $80.
Oh, wow.
All right, so I get a check for $80. I got a $20 balance. The patient does not have to pay for that by contractual obligation with Delta Dental. So I have to adjust that off.
Right.
Insurance write-off. It is literally an adjustment transaction. Just like if I presented a 10% coupon at checkout at Applebee's, they reduce my bill by 10%. It's the same exact thing. So my $100 service is going to net me $80 in collectible sales, or in this case, service, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I collect my $80 from Delta Dental, and then I have to write that $20 off. So when I look at Rusty's ledger, it says we did a $100 service, we collected